All right, welcome to the Golf Podcast, brought to you by Golficity. In today's episode, we're going to be covering putting tips. We're going to talk about how to read the greens like a pro. We're going to cover some visualization techniques as well as some other ways to read the greens that's going to dramatically help improve your putting. And in the end, in the quick tip, we are going to be covering a quick and easy drill that'll actually dramatically improve your consistency. So stick around for that. But the first thing we want to do is just take a second here and introduce ourselves, this being our first podcast. I'm Frank, and I've got Mike here with me as well. We are the founders of Golficity.com. And what we are is, let's start off right off the bat and tell you, we are not pros. We're just a couple of guys who love the game. And more importantly, we've just dedicated ourselves to learning the game. So we founded Golficity to help share that experience. We're going to be exploring that a bit more on the podcast, where we're going to get into some of these different tips and things to help you guys improve your game as well. So you can visit us on the web at golficity.com, and we also will share a little bit more about that in the links later on. Also, if you miss anything on here, if you're driving, don't worry. We'll have everything in the show notes. We're going to have links to all of the different tips that we're going to be talking about, and we'll give you a brief overview of that later on in the show. But before we get to that, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Let's talk about some of the putting tips that we want to cover today. And this is one thing that actually has dramatically helped improve my game, starting just from the visualization itself. And this is a very simple visualization that, there's a lot of people who say, look, I'm having trouble visualizing the putt. I'm not sure what that means. And that's a common struggle. But what we want to talk about is a way to visualize and actually read the greens. And it's a very simple thing that you can try the next time you're out there. And the way it works is when you stand back and look at your putt, and you're looking at the green in general, visualize as though there were water flowing out of the cup, as though there was almost a hose in there and water was flowing out of the top of the cup. And try to take a look at the green. See where you think the water might be flowing, where it's pooling, what direction it's running. And that'll help give you a feel for it. If you see it's running away from you, maybe it's sloping as the green is sloping downwards. So again, this just kind of helps give a new perspective, a new twist on things. And we talk about that a little bit in the article. And I've tried it. It's actually helped me pick up on little undulations in the green that I may not have seen before. So especially, like I said, if you see a puddle, you may see a dip that might be an area where you can get a gauge on elevation, what kind of speed you need to put on the putt. And that'll give you an idea as well of how the ball will roll, how that's going to flow. So next time you're out there, that would be the first thing I would say is give that a quick try. It takes 2 seconds. Just take a step back, visualize that water flowing out of the cup and which direction it's running in. And that's going to help give you an idea of where the ball is going to break. Now, Mike, let me throw this over to you. I know you had a couple other things that you researched as well, as far as different ways of observing the putt and things like that. So what did you find?
Well, I think it's important to observe the putt from both sides. I do this on every hole. I don't care how long it takes, because what you'll notice is that the putt may look different, or the slope may look different from both angles. So it is key to do that. For example, if you have a 5-foot putt, step 5 feet back from the ball, take a look at your putt, and then walk around to the other side of the hole and step back 5 feet and take a look at the hole that way. This way you can look at both angles, and as you walk back to your ball, you'll know which way the green is sloping, because now that you've observed it from both angles. It's really helpful. I've used it many times. It does kind of slow down the game. Some of the guys you play with, they may think you're taking too much time. But if you have a putt for birdie or par, it is an important thing. So, definitely take a look at it from both sides.
And you know what, too? I like what we mentioned in the article, and talking about speeding it up but still doing that. I like that concept of saying you should really be beginning to read your putt before you even get to the green. I mean, it's a way to save time, but maybe let's say the ball's on the far side of the pin. You can be starting to read that as you walk up. So you're already picking up your read from this side of the cup while saving time. And I have to say I agree with it 100%. Back in high school, I had a golf coach who told me every time you've got to read it from both sides. And if you're anything like me, I think you've also experienced it. There's some courses out there that just notorious for the break looks different from each side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll be on one side and you see a totally different break. So you've got to look at both breaks and you've got to just kind of put that information together and see what the best course of action is going to be.
Yeah, and we always talk about this, especially on the website. We talk about how important putting is, you know, through all of our instructional articles. Putting does represent half your score. I mean, if you think about it, if you do 2 putt every hole, you're over 30 putts in a round. And, that's why it's key to take your time and focus. And, there's a lot of great training aids out there that can help you putt. You see people with putting mats and all different devices like apps and things that you could put on your putter. But ultimately, Frank, I think the most important thing is go to the practice facility, take out 3 to 5 balls, go to an undulating type green, a green that moves one way or the next, and drop 3 to 5 balls down and just hit for 30 to 60 minutes even if it's an hour, 3 times a week. That way, you'll learn your stroke. Putting is all about your stroke, how smooth you bring the club back and how smooth you bring it through. So that's the best way to approach putting when you're practicing.
And I couldn't agree with that more, because look at how many people you see spending an hour on the range with their driver. Look, like
Right.
they say, what is it?
Putt for, what is it? Putt for dough and, no, I don't know.
Drive for show. That's right. Drive for show, putt for dough.
Exactly.
Look, it holds true, because at the end of the day, you may pull the driver out of the bag max 16 times, 15 times on a course, but you're putting, 1, 2, 3, if you're unlucky, times on each hole. So there's really nothing wrong with that. Stop at the golf course. Just jump on the putting green and putt, on the way home from work. Just to take the time, spend the time on that part of your game, and you will see your scores drop. Even if you just shave 2-3 putts off, that's 2-3 strokes. So that goes a long way towards bringing your handicap down and improving your game in general. Now, also, you had talked a little bit about, and we covered this in the article, about picking your spot on the green.
Yeah.
You want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. And picking your spot goes back to observing the putt, whether it's, stepping back and looking at it from one side and going to the other side. So you want to pick your spot of where you want to put the ball. I mean, if you know that the green is sloping down and you're hitting down a hill, maybe your spot is a few feet in front of the cup, and you say to yourself, just put the ball there, and the hill and the slope and the speed will do the rest. So a lot of times when we set up a putt, we're so excited about this 20-foot birdie putt that we just want to slam to the hole, and we end up hitting it 5-6 feet past, which may lead to the 3 putt. Instead, pick your spot. Where do you want to leave the ball? Say to yourself, okay, if this ball doesn't go in the hole, where do I want to leave it? And that comes down to picking your spot and where you want to leave that ball. It's very important.
And I find that it can make it a little bit easier, because it's a little bit less of a hurdle as far as, let's say you're staring down a 25-foot putt. Your target being that far away can be not only intimidating, but also can be tough from a point of focusing. So if you're able to focus on a spot maybe 10 feet away, that you're saying, look, if I can get it over that spot with enough speed to reach the cup, then I'm in. It makes it a lot easier. And from a mental standpoint as well, it's not as much of a challenge. You don't see a speck on the other side of the green. So I think picking your spot as well, that's going to be very important. So when you combine these 2-3 tips that we've had, just start there. We don't want to overload you with a ton of different information and you're going out there and you're overthinking it, because that can, everybody knows what kind of detriment that can be. So just start there. And that's where the practice, as Mike said, comes in. Get down to the putting range. Start with that visualization like we talked about. Look at the water flowing from the cup, so to speak. Then you can get into picking your spot and add these things into your putting routine until you've got it down. But it's definitely a great place to start. And again, if there's anything in here that you missed or you want to go back to, or as a reference point, so that you can bring that as a little cheat sheet while you're out there practicing, again, we're going to have all the information linked in our show notes. You're going to be able to find that at golficity.com/episode 1. But let's take a moment. Let's shift gears here a little bit. Now, we talked about how we were going to get into a quick drill, a quick tip that's going to dramatically help improve your consistency out there. And I have a quick story. This actually worked extremely well for me today. I was out on the course earlier this morning, and the first 9, I just couldn't get it together. I was all over the place. No consistency whatsoever. And a perfect example of that is I'd hit one, it'd be right. The next one would be left. So, it's not like I was slicing and I just got to fix my slice. It was just all over the place. And I noticed I had just something was off, but I didn't know what. And how many times we've all had this happen to us. You're kicking yourself out there and be like, I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And you're seeing that round just slip away from you. And that's what I saw. And I had a really struggle through the front 9, ended up with a 50 on the front. It was a rough front 9 for me. So I had this in mind. This comes to us as a tip that comes to us from Steve Whidden. He's a PGA Master Professional, and he put together an article for us on the site talking about how to find your percentage for more consistent golf. And what he means by that is the percentage would be the percentage of your swing that you're putting into it. Now, let me try to explain that. Let's say you got up and you swung as hard as you can. Let's use that as a baseline as 100%. That is your fastest you could swing. Well, what he says is start from the bottom, work your way up until you find that spot where you're consistent. So the exact drill goes like this. Ideally go out to the range, take a couple balls, and first swing at just 10% of your total speed. Sounds crazy, may even look crazy. It's very slow, I understand. But it's going to give you an idea. It's going to give you a baseline on the other end of the spectrum, the opposite of the 100. So now you're hitting at 10%. Then drop a few more balls. Now move up to 20% of your power. Again, 30% of your power. Move up as you go. What you're going to find is that there's going to be a tipping point in there where you're going to start to, as the power increases, you're going to start to lose some of your consistency. You're going to start to notice that the ball flight is not quite right. You're losing it left. You're losing it right. And that's where you're going to say, that's where you want to lock in. Just dial it back to what that percentage was right before that. It may only be 50, 60% of your swing. And I'm going to tell you something. It feels funny at first. Trust me. You're going to feel like you're swinging so slow. You're going to feel silly out there. But you're not. If you were to videotape yourself, you'd realize that you're not swinging as slow as it feels. It just feels that way in comparison to when you're used to getting out there and just ripping it. So once you find that spot, that 40, 50, 60%, stick with it. What you're going to find is that you actually won't lose as much yardage as you're going to think you're going to lose going into it because you're hitting the sweet spot of the ball. You're compressing the ball. And there's certain spots on the website. We talk about some articles on compressing the ball, and we can get into that in a future podcast. But you'll find that as you're making that more consistent contact, you're compressing the ball better and you're getting the distance. So what I did was I dialed it back to about 50%. Again, it felt weird. Every time I had to convince myself it's okay. I know I'm swinging. I'm not swinging that slow. And I think I was right in my 60% range. And I started hitting all the fairways. And what I really found interesting was that I didn't lose nearly as much yardage as I thought I was going to lose. I was maybe coming up about 20 yards shorter on my drives. And let me tell you something. Ask anybody. I'm sure they're willing to give up 20 yards for accuracy. Any day I'll take a 220-yard drive down the middle of the fairway over 270 in somebody's backyard any day of the week. So I was able to do that. It required tons of concentration. Kept that as my one swing thought, was just swing slow, just making that contact, and then up coming in with just lipped out my par putt on 18 and ended up with a 40 on the back. So was able to put my game back together. The round was not lost, but it's a great drill. Get out there and do it and just practice it. And you'll find that it's really a much more consistent way of playing golf. In fact, many people have heard this and you hear them talk about it, that most pros swing at about 80% of their total power. They want to do that because they want to leave that little bit extra if they need it to get out of the rough or whatever, but that's where their consistency lies, about 80%. So find where your consistency lies and stay there. And as you'll be able to add that club head speed again. As you start to feel more in your groove and you start to, the muscle memory kicks in of that swing and you're getting it. Maybe you take it, a couple weeks at 60% and then you're ready to dial it up to 70 and then to 80. And by the end of the season, you feel like, you're back to a much more powerful swing, but with that consistency. And anytime you see yourself lose that consistency, the first thing you need to do is not start to what's wrong with my swing and trying to go and adding things onto your swing, trying to change your grip. First, just slow it down. Slow it down, see how it feels, and just hit a couple like that. And I guarantee you're going to be able to see an improvement there.
Frank, on your back nine, did you change anything on and around the putting green, or was it all your long and mid game?
You know what? I found that I was doing this mostly on my long and mid game, and I think you could probably relate to this. Once that starts to come into order, you start to gain a little bit more confidence. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that even my chipping was improving and all those things, because it's tough to say on something like chipping because of the fact that obviously you're not swinging at 100% or anything like that. But because I was so in tune with it, I noticed my focus was coming back, and focus is a real key to that short game. So that's where I found that it really did help translate into other areas of my game. So it's something that I can't speak more highly enough of. I think you need to get out there and try that. But most importantly, again, if you're feeling that round slip away from you, start here. Just dial it back. Take a nice easy swing. We joke around sometimes. Maybe your buddy's going to pick on you out there because you're swinging a little slow. But trust me, they won't be when they're in the woods and you're on the fairway. So give that a try, and I guarantee that's going to help. So again, and check that out. We'll have that link to this as well in the show notes. And then Steve gets in a little bit more detail than what I'm covering here about how to do it and why it works, and he gets into some of the more technical stuff that the pros might be more aware of than I am, but go ahead and check that out as well. So, Mike, did you have anything else that you wanted to go over with that?
No, I think we covered it. Just keep practicing. I mean, I really think what you just said about today's round, it's going to make sense to a lot of people out there. I mean, it happened to me last week. Tough front nine, good back nine, and it really was that focus that came back into play. And I wish I had that focus from the get-go. So that's stuff that I have to work on as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah,
and some people, I think, even tend to do that without thinking of it. What they think of it more of as you're having that round again, you're playing terrible and you're frustrated, and then on the back you just say, you know what, I'm just going to give up and just swing. And a lot of times that's the same type of thing. You're just slowing down because the frustration is building and it's building, and you're swinging harder and harder and you're trying to overcorrect, and then you're all over the place. But then when you say, look, I'm just going to, you let the frustration go and you say, I'm just going to swing. What you find is if someone was to videotape you, you're probably slowing your tempo down a bit. So take a look at that article. And also, with the putting tips that we discussed, we want to know what you guys think about that. We want to know, like we said, we're on a quest to learn everything we can about this game and improve and help others improve. So we want to hear what you have to say. What are some of the experiences you've had with these? Have you tried these tips or sent something similar? So go ahead and send us that stuff our way. You can reach us at facebook.com/Golficity, or you can reach us on our Twitter handle @Golficity. It's GOLFICITY. So send us our way because we'd love to hear about you guys' experience with that. Okay, so let's also just briefly talk about next week. We're going to be covering the Barclays. We're going to be very excited about that. Mike and I will be there on site on Wednesday. We'll hopefully grab a couple players, get some interviews in, and if so, we'll be able to maybe post those on the site and on the podcast. Anything in particular you're looking forward to, Mike?
I'm excited about playoff golf, Frank. I absolutely love it. Not many people get too ramped up about playoff golf than I do. Everyone's big into playoff NFL, MLB. I am too, but I love playoff golf. And I'm excited to be behind the ropes next week. Liberty National, beautiful golf course in New Jersey. It's right on the water, overlooking the Hudson. You got the Statue of Liberty in the distance. And, it's playoff atmosphere. All the top names are going to be there. I hope I can just maybe grab a couple people, get a couple quick interviews, and, just follow these guys around and see how they play the game.
Yeah, and we'll also be tweeting live while we're there, and also on Instagram. So again, that's Instagram.com/Golficity. Keep it easy, keep it simple on how to reach us. So you guys can follow along while we're there. That'll be next Wednesday. One thing I wanted to just quickly jump into, because as we talked about playoff golf, this is the time of year for the last couple of years since they initiated it, that we inevitably get the question, because it can be a little bit confusing. It's how exactly does the FedEx Cup work? So let me have Mike just quickly cover some aspect of that.
Yeah, the cool thing about the FedEx Cup, it's golf's, well, let me back up. It's sport's biggest prize. The winner of the playoffs, or the winner of the FedEx Cup, I should say, wins $10 million, plus any tournament winnings leading up to it. So how it works, there's 33 pre-playoff tournaments throughout the year, and it usually starts at the very beginning of the year. They'll usually kick things off out in the warm weather, Hawaii, California. And these are our weekend tournaments we see. And then at the end of the year, which is what we're coming up to, will be the playoffs, which are 4 tournaments that happen every late August into mid-September. And throughout the year, over those 33 tournaments, players, not only do they earn big money when they win, but they earn big points when they win. And some of the tournaments give players 500 points. These are called Fedex Cup Points. And as you rank in that particular tournament, tells you how many points you get. So you may come in 30th place, you may get 20 points. So at the end of it all, whoever has the most points will hold the coveted prize and win the $10 million. Last year, it was Brandt Snedeker who won it. Really exciting, very exciting times in golf. The tournament is great. It starts with over 100 golfers. It's all broken down. Then every tournament that goes by, more and more golfers will disappear because they don't have enough points to advance to that next round. So, at the end of it all, there'll be 30 golfers competing at the Tour Championship in Atlanta, and the winner will hold the prize and win $10 million. So I'm really excited, and I'm excited to be there to kick it off at Liberty National.
Yeah, and look, at first people were saying it's a little confusing, we don't understand it, but look, the proof is in the pudding there. It's worked. It's every year it's come down to right to the end. There's been nobody who's run away with it. So, and we talked about putting tips earlier. Can you imagine some of these guys are coming right down to the end of the line? And you talked about that payday, $10 million payday. How about having that at the other end of your putt?
Yeah, that would be nice. I tell you, it's not an easy accomplishment. We know that, but the cool thing about the playoffs, Frank, is that you could have the most points all the way through the playoffs and still lose the big prize at the very end. And we saw it with Rory McIlroy last year. He was winning the whole way. He had a ton of points, but Brandt won that final tournament, which got him over the top. So it comes down to the wire every year, and it's super exciting. So I can't wait.
Yeah. So then the Barclays is going to kick that off. We're excited to be there. We're going to be covering that live. So we're looking forward to that. And like I said, keep checking back with the website. You'll be able to find more on that. And also from a week-to-week perspective, also make sure to check back any of you guys who are fantasy golf players. You got to check out the fantasy section that we have set up on the website. So what that is every Tuesday we have our in-depth analysis and picks that come out. We've really this year really just taken off as far as some of the picks that we've had. I think we picked 4 straight weeks in a row with wins, and with the field as challenging as it is, that is not easy to do. But we have our staff working on that, crunching the numbers each week, and you can find that on you just go to golficity.com. You can click in the fantasy tab at the top, and each week that'll take you right there, as well as so you can sign up for our free newsletter, and you'll get those fantasy picks in your mailbox every week. Those are dropped in the mailboxes on Wednesday, and that's all free. So make sure to get signed up for that. We will put links to that as well in the show notes, and those picks come out every week through the regular season and into the playoffs. So that's most of the year. So look for those and follow along. And again, that's another area we want to hear from you. Who are you picking? How are you doing in your fantasy league? Are you dominating the office or what? So send that over to us. You can comment on facebook.com/Golficity or tweet us at Golficity. So other than that, we want to thank everyone for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We much appreciate that. This is the first of many episodes to come. We're going to try to bring these to you every week. What we're going to be working on is covering a couple tips to help improve your game in each episode. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to dive into some golf courses. We're going to talk about some of the courses we've played, maybe some of the courses that our readers have played, and try to give some suggestions in those areas as well. So make sure you check back with us weekly. And again, leave us that 5-star review on iTunes. We appreciate that. And we will check back with you in a week.